So let's move on. So, okay, this is actually a presentation I'll give in Stockholm in 1 week. So the presentation, the slides, kind of last about 30 minutes. Maybe I'll do a shorter version here. So today I'm talking about the state of JavaScript in 2017. And the state of JavaScript is actually a survey about JavaScript that I've done 2 years in a row now. And this year, Michael is actually helping me. So we did the survey, we collected the results, and now I'm going to talk about the results. We collected the data that we collected, and give you like a small breakdown, not all the data, but a small sample of the results. So I probably can skip over this. You know, a lot of you guys know me a little bit, so here's kind of some background information about me. Mostly what I wanted to say here is that this is like my own JavaScript biography in a way. I started with jQuery, and then I moved on to Meteor. And then around 2016, I started looking at other JavaScript frameworks and libraries, but I also started getting a bit confused because there were just so many of them. And this is also around that time that this blog post came out, so I don't know if anybody remembers this post, how it feels to learn JavaScript in 2016. Basically, it kind of highlighted the fact that JavaScript was really confusing and a lot richer than it used to be. So you had React, Angular, Webpack, all these things, and it was hard to pick one. As you can see from the number of recommends, it was a pretty popular post, and I think it really reflected the overall feeling in the community at the time. So that's basically the reason why I decided to start the survey, to try and help people deal with this JavaScript fatigue, as people were calling it, by getting more like hard data on what frameworks are actually used, what libraries are actually popular, and so on. So the survey results got picked up by quite a few online publications. It was pretty successful, so it only made sense to do it again this year. And like I said, now I have Michael helping me out. He's actually the creator of a site called bestofjs.org. So maybe he can talk about it a little bit more after this. But really quickly, it's basically a site that tracks all the most useful and most popular JavaScript libraries based on their GitHub popularity. And it's really cool because you can see you have these categories here, so you can go and see which chart library is the most popular right now for the past month, for the past year, and it can really help you with your library choices. So I think it really made sense to kind of partner up and try to get both projects, Best of JS and State of JS, closer together. So before I actually share the results, I wanted to show you a few stats about the survey overall. First, that's the number of total visitors. And what's really cool is compared to last year, it's actually a huge increase, so it more than doubled. And same with the number of total responses. So this year we had over 23,000 compared to about 9,000 last year. So you know, if we keep doubling the numbers every year, you can imagine a couple of years we'll have we'll reach a really sizable part of the JavaScript developer community, hopefully.
How did you manage to increase so much the number of hours?
Well, so last year, we had 9,000 people take the survey, and most of these people wanted to know about the results. So when we published the results, all these people came back to see the results, and then the people who learned about the results but hadn't taken the survey also left their emails so they could take the survey next time. So it's pretty good to have like this two-step process where first you ask the question, then you publish the results, because every time it's a chance to like grow your audience and your base. So I think that's mainly why we increase so much. Also, the other thing actually is people now they kind of expect the survey. A lot of the comments we had was, oh, it's been a year already. And so it's pretty cool to think that it's becoming like a regular event that people wait for and are looking forward to. So we had this time 101 questions, which is a bit more than last year. So, I mean, it's a lot of questions, but the JavaScript ecosystem is just so vast now. There's so many different things to cover, from the front end, back end, testing, and more. We really couldn't do it in less than 100. And because it was so long, it took people on average 14 minutes to fill it out, compared to 12 minutes last year. So if you want to know how much lost productivity we cost to JavaScript developers overall, you can multiply 14 minutes by 23,000. And yeah, I think it's about 200 days of lost time. And maybe next year we can calculate like how much cash, like how much money we cost developers. So the charts. So this is what the charts are going to look like. Basically, for every question, every JavaScript library, you had 5 possible answers. First answer reflects awareness of the library, and the option was that you have never heard about that library. So you can see for this hypothetical JS library, 10% of respondents have never heard about it. So you can deduce that 90% have heard about it. So that's a pretty good awareness ratio. Next, the yellow columns reflect interest. So this one, people who have heard about the library but are not interested in learning it or are neutral towards it. And then the bright yellow, people who have heard of it and want to learn it. So this gives you the interest ratio. Because obviously there's going to be some libraries that are brand new where not that many people have used them yet, but a lot of people want to learn them. And finally, third category in purple, satisfaction. First, people who have used the library but would not want to use it again because they had a bad experience, maybe. And then finally, people who want to use it again. And this gives you the satisfaction ratio. So let's start with JavaScript flavors. And what I mean by flavors is all the variants of JavaScript and the languages that compile down to JavaScript, such as ES6, for example. And in ES6, I also include ES7, ES 2016, or whatever. And already in 2016, we had 74% of people who were using it and wanted to use it again. So that was already a really good score. And this year, it only went up to 87%. So I think, obviously, this is only representative of survey respondents, maybe not JavaScript developers as a whole. It's hard to say. But I think what you can say is that ES6 is becoming a standard, and few developers use vanilla standard JavaScript if they can use ES6 these days. Another flavor of JavaScript that's up and coming is TypeScript. So 2016, as you can see, you had a pretty good chunk of people who wanted to learn TypeScript, and already kind of a good proportion who were using it and would use it again. 2017, the trend is kind of going in that direction even more. So even more people who are using it happily and would want to use it again. So yeah, it seems to me like TypeScript is, on its way to also become somewhat of a standard for modern JavaScript apps.
I was just wondering, like, how, because, like, heard of it but not interested went down, and then usage went up, so people actually that weren't interested before,
well, I think,
increased, and then actually people started using it, or?
well, probably what happened is that a lot of people who were not interested are now interested, and people who were interested now use it. So that could explain the differences. Of course, it's hard. It's hard to say because we can't track a single person from year to year. Maybe that's something we could add in the future, but these might be different respondents too. Now, front-end, that's probably the category that's most hotly contested. There's like new front-end libraries coming out every month, or maybe even every week. But that being said, there are a few leaders in that category, such as React. So even back in 2016, you can see that it had a really positive score. Lots of people who want to learn React. Lots of people, even more people who are using it. 2017, same thing, just a bit more, even more positive. So a bit fewer people who have heard of it, but even more people who are happily using it. And I think what's important in this chart to look at is that the ratio between people who use it and want to use it again and people who would not want to use it again is very favorable. So it means that overall people are really, really happy with React. So it's not just popular because it has Facebook behind it and it's kind of the latest fad or whatever. Developers are actually happy using React, at least according to this chart. Another framework that's showing a really interesting trend is Vue. So back in 2016, you did have around 23% of respondents who had never heard about Vue. But already at this point, you could see that people who did use Vue were really happy with it, like a 90% satisfaction ratio. And this year, if you look at the first column, you can see it went way down. In other words, most people now have heard of Vue, and a lot of them actually want to learn it. So I think that's a really, really good progression for Vue. And at the same time, it maintained its really good satisfaction score. So it means that as it's getting more popular, it's confirming the fact that it's actually a good solution and that it provides a good developer experience. So it's always interesting to see when something gets popular, but at the same time, it's not just because of word of mouth, of buzz, or all these things. It's because it's actually a good tool. AngularJS is kind of the opposite, because this is the old Angular. So as you would expect, yeah. So Angular is interesting because it's a technology that's obviously widely used, probably used a lot more than Vue.js, but as you can see from its scores, people aren't super happy with it.
Can you describe, please, why this happened in 2 words? What's the problem with Angular?
So AngularJS specifically, this is the old Angular, so it's deprecated now, and there's a
there are newer versions.
Yeah, so they had different charts. Okay. So the previous chart that it's expected that it would be decreasing because there's a new one. So this is the new one, but even the new one, so usage increased a little bit, but you can see, I guess this shows that people aren't really interested in learning it, and I think it's because of the success of Vue and React. They're really taking over, and they're perceived as easier to use, easier to learn. So I think while Angular still has a very wide use base, lots of people using it, in terms of what do people want to learn now, I think it's losing ground to its competitors. So in this presentation, I've included a break in the form of a small game, small quiz. So let's see. Let's try it out. Here's how it works. I'm going to give you a description of a JavaScript library, and you have to pick the right name for it. So it might be easier for some, harder for others, but there's two options, so you might luck out and pick the right one. So the first one is a fast and lightweight UI component library from the Ember.js team. Now, when I say each name, raise your hand if you think that's the right one. So Glimmer. Okay, what about Simmer? Okay. And the answer is, drum roll, yeah, Glimmer. So this one is not that hard because I guess an ember is something that glimmers. I don't know, can you say an ember simmers? I don't know.
Simmer something.
Yeah, you can simmer something, yeah, okay, I guess. But the second one is a bit more niche. A minimalistic ClojureScript interface to React.js. So who thinks it's a detergent?
I want it to be.
No hands for detergent. What about reagent? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's reagent. Okay. This one simplifies your backbone application code with robust views and architecture solutions. So raise your hand if you think it's Puppet. Now raise your hand if you think it's Marionette. Okay, so I'm surprised that so many people knew the right answer because not that many people use Backbone anymore, I think.
Yeah.
Ah, that's smart. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I should change it then. Huh. Yeah, that's too easy. Next one, single page apps done right. So Durandal and now Excalibur. So these are both really cool sword names, so I think they would both make cool library names, but the answer, there can be only one, and it's Durandal. That was a Highlander reference, by the way. Okay, a web component library focusing on a functional rendering pipeline and a small footprint. Skate.js, anybody? What about Roller.js? Okay, so I think most of you got it wrong. It's actually Skate.js. And by the way, all of these have at least 1,000 stars on GitHub or more. So I'm not trying to trick you with like things nobody has heard of. A state controller with its own debugger. So this one is a real head scratcher. Sorry. Is it cerebral or is it intellect? And the answer is cerebral. Yeah, I had never heard about this thing either. So, okay, hard mode. Let's step things up a little. So you'll have three possible choices now. A 1 kilobyte JavaScript library for building front-end applications. HyperApp, Super App, and Awesome App. And I think those are all really kick-ass cool names, but there's actually only one answer, and it's HyperApp. A 4 kilobyte framework. So one of these is a real name. For creating sturdy front-end applications. Chew, Cha-Cha-Cha, or Chomp. So a lot of hands for Chomp, but it's actually Chew. I think the logo is a cute little train, but I don't know why. A friendly and fast UI library from eBay that makes building web apps fun. Marquee? No? No hands for Marquee? Murky? Maybe. Or Marco? And the answer is Marco. Finally, the last one, a minimal, blazing fast UI library. So who thinks it's sun? How about moon? How about star? This one is actually a trick question.
This one appeared on Hacker News the other day, right? It's a competitor to Vue.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. But yeah, it's competitor. I think, is it built on top of Vue or just similar to Vue?
Vue compatible.
Oh, Vue. Okay, that's what it is. That's the new trend. Like you have React, you have Preact, you have Vue, you have Moon. Why not? Okay, game over. Well, did anybody get all of these right? No, nobody. Not even. You should get them right. Ah, okay. Okay, yeah. I wonder if anybody is gonna get all of these. We'll see.
Did you get them all right?
I made the quiz, so it's hard to say, but I don't think I would know. There's a lot of them I had never heard about before. Okay, let's go back to our boring numbers. No, not really. Data layer. So this is kind of a not super well-defined category, but basically all the things that help you manage data, manage state, get your data from the server. And of course, in this category, Redux is one of the main players. So in 2016, a lot of people wanted to learn it. A lot of people were happily using it. And basically the same trend is confirmed. Still a pretty good, actually really good 90% satisfaction ratio. This was actually one of the results that surprised me in 2016 because Redux has a reputation as being a bit complex and having a lot of boilerplate. But I think, it seems like people are actually happy to use it. GraphQL. So this one is very, very interesting. In 2016, we had 35% of people who had never heard about GraphQL. And on the other hand, 45% who wanted to learn it. 1 year later, way more people have heard about it. And these people probably have heard good things because they all seem to want to learn GraphQL. So yeah, this is like a really, really good progression. Even though not many people are actually using it, it's really one of the trends of this year, like one of the up-and-coming technologies, I think. And this shows it's probably the right time to write a book about GraphQL. Mobile frameworks. This is a category with a pretty clear leader, React Native. 2016, 61% people wanted to learn it. This year, about the same, kind of a stable trend. I'm not sure why more people are not actually using React Native. I suspect it's because a lot of development shops still just build native apps, like Objective-C, Swift, or Java, or all these native technologies. But I think if you're going to try and build a cross-platform app, React Native is a really good solution. Finally, build tools. This is another category with a very dominant player, in this case, Webpack. So in 1 year, it went from 50%, which is already a really good score, to 70%. So Webpack is really dominant. I think one of the main reasons is because there's a lot of tools now that let you use Webpack without having to actually set it up and configure it. Tools like Create React App, Next.js, Gatsby.js for static sites. So it makes sense that Webpack would be so popular. So let's see how I'm doing on time. Okay, yeah. Still have 5 minutes. So this is the last section, random comments. So we had a free comment field in our survey. And I selected some of the best ones for you. So first off, it's a pleasure to take this survey. You actually learned something as well. So that was obviously really nice to read. I think it's actually the first time ever that somebody has said this sentence, "It's a pleasure to take this survey." That's not something you hear every day. JavaScript used to be the bane of my existence. It's not anymore. Good job, JavaScript. Yeah, that's that's pretty cool to read as well. And I think it reflects a pretty common sentiment about JavaScript, which is that for a long time, JavaScript was seen as not a real language, not a serious language, and kind of a toy. And then over the last couple of years, more and more libraries came out, React, Angular, and then ES6. The language itself started changing. And then people had the opposite reaction. They started complaining about the complexity, too many options, too many libraries. And now I think we're finally kind of coming out on the other side of this, where things are kind of narrowing down, and it's easier to make the right choice. And I think that's why we're having these kind of comments now, where people are finally, getting to a point with JavaScript where it's like a good language, and they're happy to use it on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was wondering about drop table in Slack earlier. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't work. Otherwise, we would have lost all our 23,000 results. Hi, great job. Here's an octopus for you. Thanks, I guess. I recently learned that octopus are really smart, and that you shouldn't eat them, which in Japan is not always easy, but I'm trying my best. JavaScript and its entire ecosystem should die in an out-of-control, raging fire. I guess you can't please everybody. But keep in mind, this is coming from someone who just spent 15 minutes on a survey about JavaScript. So you know that deep down, they still care, I think.
Is your survey anonymized? You can't see his results, like they come out? No.
I can, yeah, it's anonymized, but you could probably go and see the results.
I'd be curious to see what he just said.
Maybe he just said everything sucks everywhere. Yeah. This survey makes me feel like a fossil. So many things I never even heard of. I can definitely understand that kind of feeling, because it's true that when you look at all the technologies mentioned in the survey, that's a lot of things. But the goal is really to not so much point the finger and be like, hey, you should know all these things. It's more to narrow them down and boil them down to just the best and the most useful. And I think this next comment really reflects this. Reading last year's survey showed me what to focus on to stay sane. I probably wouldn't still be doing JS if it wasn't for this survey. So that's really awesome to read, because that's exactly our goal with the survey. It's to help people make these really hard decisions and stay sane. Yeah, that's a good goal, I think. Roses are red, yellow are ducks. It's 2017 and JS still sucks. So, it's nice that when you have feedback like this, at least it's poetic and it rhymes. So it kind of sweetens the pill. So one last number before I leave you. It's 170. And that's the number of time the word love was mentioned in the comments, as in I love the survey or I love JavaScript. So, I think developers, we often get a bad reputation as grumpy people, very negative, very nitpicky, love to complain. But it shows that at the end of the day, there's still a lot of positivity. And, especially in the JavaScript ecosystem, these days I think the vibe overall is pretty positive. So on that note, thanks. And if you want to learn more about the survey, you can go to stateofjs.com. Cool. Questions? Well, you should come up with my co-star.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, Martin?
You mentioned 170 times love.
Yes.
How often is it used sarcastically? Would love be that is different?
I don't know about that. I guess I could count the number of times the word hate is in the comments. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have an algorithm for detecting sarcasm?
I guess we need to ask one of our NLP students.
Okay.
How many times did you get actual comments, like compared to the whole answers? Because you get like 20,000 answers, right? But how many people? wrote actual
I think we got 3,000 free comments, like in the comments field, and then we had every time we had like a section like data layer or front end, we had an other field as well. So that was also kind of a free text field, and we had a lot of comments there as well.
A lot of free comments.
So overall, I don't know if you add all the free comments from the different sections, probably at least 20,000 or 10,000 free comments.
So what was your reason to focus on the love only? Because it seems to be a pretty minor word out of these 20,000 comments.
Because I wanted to end the presentation on a good note.
So you're biased.
Well, that's true, I guess. But you know, I'll give you the data set if you want. You can, or if you have some other ideas of other words. I guess it sucks. Yeah, sucks is a good one.
Something that was really interesting to see was the fact that many people were really satisfied by the tool they use. I'm thinking about React, Vue, Redux, GraphQL. All these big names, people were satisfied at more than 90%, I think. So overall, people love the tool they use. That's the great thing we learned from the service.
I think it's true. I think there's a phenomenon where people who complain about something, usually they're not using it. Like a lot of people complain about, they're like, yeah, React is too complex. I tried it, or I haven't tried it, but I heard that Redux is too hard. And I think that's like, yeah, sometimes you read a post and you get, I guess that guy knows what he's talking about. But if you kind of read carefully, he hasn't actually used the thing. So you should always try to get feedback from like real users, I think.
Do you think that's because people invest so much time in a particular framework that at that point they're like, I'm stuck here, put so much time, I love it now. I love this jail I'm in.
Maybe. But I think, Angular shows that it's not always the case. Like Angular has a huge user base, but people are pretty clearly not that happy with it. So
I'm wondering how many people do know that react with the patent issue?
We didn't ask about that, but I don't think it's a big issue for most developers. Yeah, it's not.
The program was talking about more than 1 year
Yeah.
ago.
Recently, again, talk again. I don't think there is any freelance. People mind, maybe next year we see the impact.
My impression is maybe I'm wrong, but as a developer, I don't feel like I'm worried about that. Like maybe if I worked for a company, the company lawyer might care, but as a developer, I'm just interested in the best tool. I don't really care about the patent. Facebook is not going to sue me here in Japan because they don't really care, and I'm.
We are so many to use this library.
Yeah.
It's hard to think about the program.
Yeah, at our level, like as the end user, the programmer.
You have some compatible library like React,
Yeah.
which you can switch.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other interesting stats to share?
One other thing, the great thing about the survey is that it's easy to complain, to write something on Reddit, I can use, or a blog entry to say that this thing sucks. But the great thing with the survey is that people last say, use this and I'm satisfied and I like this.
Yeah, I mean, and the survey does take 40 minutes to complete, so these people who are pretty serious about JavaScript and they invest time into this, so I think it gives you a good data. Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown between people who are like amateurs, professional?
No, we have like a year of experience. Yeah, we ask for years of experience, so we could do that.
But do you know like people are actually employed as developers or are just like students, something like that?
We don't know that, no, but I don't think it would make a huge difference probably. Like last year, I tried looking at that and I couldn't find any meaningful trends. Like, if React is popular, it's going to be popular kind of the same way among most classes of most types of developers, I think.
But you have that kind of variable in your survey? Were you asking the occupation? Do you have that kind of variable?
Yeah, we ask for
occupation.
We don't ask.
occupation, we have
Yeah.
the salary and
The number of
year experience.
Yeah.
So maybe we can.
Yeah, like, yeah. We haven't calculated this year. I think last year it was, I don't know, maybe around 40,000 maybe US dollars, 50,000. But you know, average salary is not very meaningful. You have to look at per country. We can actually do this year because we have geographic data for most people. But salary is not really something we focused on much. I think the Stack Overflow developer survey is probably better for that, for like demographics. Yeah, we were mostly interested in really just technology.
Do you also have some dropout stats, like someone opened it, answered 5
Yeah.
questions, and no, I'm not going to do this.
I think I have it on one slide. Yeah, so 63% of people completed the survey. Oh,
It's really good.
yeah.
Because it's a long survey.
Yes. So, yeah.
There was one library, Angular JS, I think, which lost some popularity
Yeah.
since last year. And there were some competitors, like not Redux, but
React. Yeah.
I want little bit technical comments on how this happened, which one is going up and which one is down, why. A couple of nice examples, not really going deep into things.
At least to my understanding, I would say that 4 years ago, Angular was the key, because it was kind of pioneer, the new framework that helps you create interfaces very easy that react to data change. And there are something called data binding. As soon as data changes, the UI was automatically updated. And the problem is that performances automatic updates, you need a lot of magic code. So when you have simple things to implement, it was easy. But as soon as your application grows, as soon as you have something more complicated to implement, it was becoming sometimes difficult to understand how Angular does its magic. So that's why simpler libraries like React and later Vue came up and changed the trends. And I felt the same path because 4 years ago I discovered Angular and I thought, oh, that's really awesome. I can use in a few lines some code to magic. My UI was automatically updated, but later when I had to implement forms, for example, with a lot of logic, I had a lot of trouble to understand how Angular works. And then I switched to React. And React is a really simple library compared to Angular. It's just the UI layer. Data flow from top to bottom. And there is a pattern that is really simpler, at least for me, to understand, and that makes things easier to implement. And I think that's why Angular success in the Angular trend dropped, and then other libraries came back.
So it's going to die in a few years, do you think?
I don't know, no, I don't think, because I don't say it's bad, it's just a question of taste too. But I would prefer something simpler, and I prefer to have more control on my data and all things flow. But you have Google that is behind Angular, and it's in a lot of corporate organizations, they use Angular, so it's not going to die. And if you are good at Angular, you can find a good job. It's a question of taste. So it's not bad, it's just I prefer, for whatever reason, a lot of your personal prefer things like React or Vue to be.
But I think something can be good, but at the same time there is like a general trend for the ecosystem, and I think the trend is more towards functional programming, towards things like React, Redux. So, you know, I always try personally to go into the general trend because I think it's just easier rather than like kind of do your own thing. And maybe Angular, I think they're a bit out of that trend. Maybe they will follow it too. But
Angular is better for enterprise solutions. You have everything because it's framework. But React, you can cherry pick anything you want, and it will take you some time to cherry pick the right one. And Angular is written in TypeScript, So it's very easy to jump for backend developer to start writing actual JavaScript, especially C# and Java developer love Angular. And as you said, yeah, there is a huge ecosystem around Angular. So you can pick a lot of things and create your own, your own solution that matches your needs. Whereas Angular is a world framework, and it's a big beast, and you have to master the beast.
Yep.
I'm kind of annoyed by Angular developers that ask me to provide TypeScript definitions for my files.
Well, maybe we can talk about Angular at the React meetup. That would be.
Let's do a fight, yeah.
Yeah. It's.
How many people are using Ember?
Maybe we can look it up after. I didn't compile the stats for the presentation. I think also pretty good percentage.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
React and Vue, of course.
Yeah.
I can give you the number later.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Does Polymer still exist? People actually use it?
Yes, I think it was one of our. Yeah.
And I think there was a version number 3 within the.
But I think last year everybody complained that I didn't put Polymer in the options, and this year I put it, and not that many people chose it. So sometimes it's just like a vocal minority. Like this year, people complained that it didn't put Cycle.js, I think. So it's hard to. Next year maybe we'll do our like a custom survey app. This year we used kind of a type form, which is a hosted form app. But next year, if we can build a custom build app for that, we can have autocomplete or make it easier to pick the right library.
You have to make choices. So it's
Yeah.
short list of choices.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Okay. If I decided to study JavaScript today, what do you suggest to me?
I would say, try React if you
Yeah.
like functional programming, especially. It's really nice.
Because use, for example, use IDE or use something Git library and using like something like library or using the IDE.
I think you can just use React. Like you don't really need any IDE or any other thing. You can just start with React and build a simple client-side app, and then from there you can learn about. First of all, you can come to the React meetup, which is also here every month, and then you can add. So you have React, you got Redux, GraphQL, maybe Next.js. There's a lot of technologies that kind of work together.
Writing on VI, TypeScript.
Yeah.
So there's another Learning JavaScript in 2017. Yours was based off the Learning JavaScript in 2016. You made the State of JavaScript. And then you made this survey, and somebody posted the response to the survey with Learning JavaScript in 2017.
Oh, okay.
So, right.
It's gone full circle.
Yeah. Kind of a little bit.
Well, I think, I haven't heard as many people complain about JavaScript recently, so I think things are definitely going in the right direction. So, yeah, overall, I think it's pretty good. Oh, one last question.
Feeling among experienced JavaScript programmers that you still should start or you need to learn vanilla JavaScript really well and not just these frameworks?
I don't think that personally. I think you can start with React. I mean, because there's a lot of things in JavaScript that you don't need to know to write React, and there's a lot of things in React that are like functional programming patterns or React patterns, but you wouldn't learn them if you just buy a JavaScript book. So it doesn't seem very practical to me to be like, okay, I'm just going to learn all the basics, because the basics you'll find in a typical JavaScript books might not be the basics that you need to build React apps. So that's what I think.
So I remember Stack Overflow used to be flooded with jQuery answers to JavaScript problems. You wanted a basic JavaScript answer, but you got a jQuery answer instead. So do you find now is it moving towards just vanilla JavaScript with Stack Overflow or React? Because I think I see it moving towards vanilla, thankfully.
Yeah, okay. Last question because we're running out of time. So yeah, I think it's like React uses vanilla JavaScript, so there isn't a difference like there was with jQuery, really. It's all kind of the same thing at the end of the day with ES6. Like, I don't know, I'm not making that much sense, but it's like, you know, that question kind of disappears because it's all converging.
We're not getting CoffeeScript or TypeScript
Yeah.
answers.
Stack Overflow for JavaScript questions, like jQuery questions, or the JavaScript answers, got jQuery answers. Do you understand what I mean? Do you ever see that? Do you remember those days?
I remember there was a lot of jQuery and there isn't anymore, but I think that's just because JavaScript itself is getting better, so it all makes more sense now. You don't need like this intermediary layer.
I remember looking for questions like looking to a JavaScript or looking to a tree using JavaScript. Somebody would respond with a jQuery answer. And it's not.
Yeah. So now you would just use JavaScript, but like React doesn't really help you with that, so it's kind of separate.
Well, I mean, you don't see TypeScript right now, right?
But it would be the same in. I don't know. We can talk about it later, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's no good answer to that.
Now it's more fragmented because before jQuery was the king of almost everybody used to use jQuery, but now you have choice between React and Vue. Both options are great, but they're both very different. So it's not a single thing that will solve everything.
Okay. So thanks, everybody. Maybe, Martin, are you ready? Should we take a 5-minute break first? Okay.